Thank you, Professor Finkelhor. This was certainly an optimistic version of the reality about child sexual abuse. And at times during your presentation, I was asking if it's not broken, why fix it? But I know it's more complicated than that. At this point, truly, I think we should listen to Professor Andresen, Sabine, and to Dr. Daphna Tenner, and then move on to a discussion that I'm very happy to conduct. Are you ready? Thank you. I would like to ask the Professor Andresen from the Goethe-University from Frankfurt to describe us the German situation.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Zvi, for this nice introduction. Thank you very much for inviting me to this conference, and thank you for giving me the chance to join this inspiring podium with David, Zvi, and Daphna. Asha asked me to share some experiences from Germany with this auditorium. Next time I bring my high heels when I come to Tel Aviv. Zvi, would you give me a sign 5 minutes before the 20 minutes?
5 minutes?
Yeah.
Before the 20, before the 30?
No, 20.
20? Okay.
I have 20 minutes, yeah.
Okay.
So what I like to do in this 20 minutes, in the first part of my presentation, I will give you a brief overview on the public debate on sexual abuse in Germany since 2010. Why since 2010? I will explain in a second. Second, then I wish to address some political strategies on the national level. And in the third part, I shall consider the discussion on prevention concepts and some available empirical findings from a study I did. And I think it fits to that what David figured out on prevention programs, and that we need much more research on these programs, its effects, and what are we doing with the children, especially in the young age. So I start with the overview on the public debates on sexual abuse in Germany. Since 2010, Germany has experienced a previously unseen increase in public awareness regarding the problem of sexual abuse in childhood and youth. What we had before was a taboo in the public, talking about sexual abuse in families and in social institutions like schools, boarding schools, foster care, and or sports clubs. What was the changing point in 2010? First of all, it was the media and reports in the media about sexual abuse in the 1970s and 1980s in Catholic elite boarding schools, in prestigious progressive education boarding schools, especially in one school founded in 1910, in institutions by Protestants, and in sports clubs. So adults went to the media, adults who victimized as a child in this prestigious Catholic boarding school and this prestigious progressive education boarding school, and the media brought up their experiences on sexual abuse. And that was a really interesting point in Germany for changing this discourse on sexual abuse. And what is now going on in Germany, I just mentioned it, I can explain it in the discussion. We have some interesting public discourses about let me say, some too liberal thoughts in the 1980s about sex between children and adults. In the left social movements in Germany, especially in the party the Greens, which are very important in Germany, as well as in child protection organizations. So that is what's running out in the German public discourse. What is important to clarify the context and what came up to the debate. Do we have to be aware of certain types of social institutions, such as children's homes and boarding schools? So the discourse was mainly on social institutions and not on sexual abuse in families. Are there some certain pedagogic concepts, for instance, the family principle applied in progressive education boarding schools? Is there a certain worldviews like Catholic sexual moral which affect sexual abuse in their institutions, or the purported sexual emancipation since 1968? This was also running out in the debate in Germany as a reason, a cause for abuse in especially social institutions. Or are there certain professional groups, such as the Catholic Church with its codes of celibacy, or do we have to be aware of powerful networks? That was what came out in 2010. So then we observed some changes, new political strategies for dealing with the topic of sexual abuse of children and youth and families and educational institutions. We've got since that some new empirical findings on victims, new discussions on intervention and prevention linked to the issue of the need for greater professionalization, new research projects on approaches to and the effectiveness of prevention. And we have, and I will explain it later, a new child protection law with specific rights for children independent from parents and new responsibilities for professionals. So let me come, so that's what was the case in 2010. Adults who got to the public, media who were interested in, and then we had this huge debate and questions to the institutions. The headmasters of an elite Catholic school excused what happened in his school in the 1980s, and that was extremely important for what is going on till now. So I will just mention some political strategies on the national level. I think it could be important to compare it with other experiences in the US or in the Netherlands, in Ireland, for instance. First of all, our government set up a round table on sexual abuse headed by three ministries: the Ministry of Justice, of Education and Research, and the Ministry of the Family. Second, they create the post of an, as we called it, independent trustee to deal with sexual abuse issues. This trustee was established within the Family Ministry and provided with the services of a group of expert advisors. Third, they developed some agreements with, for example, the German Sports Federation or the churches, and how to develop protective concepts in their institutions and clubs. And fourth, the Ministry of Research has allocated funds for research, initially in the health domain and then in education. It is also funding junior professor posts at selected universities to meet the need for a greater degree of professionalization. Then what is the case in Germany is that a student who will become a teacher or a social worker got no lecture, no knowledge on this issue on sexual abuse. So, and this junior professor post were established now, and they are responsible to create curriculums for students at the university for teacher students and social worker, students for social work. So one demand being discussed in Germany and throughout the world is the need for a thorough scientific analysis of all cases of sexual abuse. So let me give you some work this independent trustee make. I showed this yesterday. First of all, in 2011, Berlin started with a campaign, Breaking Silence Breaks the Power of the Offenders. And this campaign was accompanied by a telephone hotline which encouraged victims to call and tell their experiences they had. And you can see between 2011 and 2012, this telephone hotline and this independent trustee got more than 3,000 letters from victims, more than 13,000 telephone conversations. And this telephone hotline and the reports of the victims and the age group was between 8 to 89, were evaluated by a child psychiatrist from the University of Ulm. It is still published, and it is very interesting what are the reports, what the reports are going on. So another thing is that the institutions where the social institutions where sexual abuse were experienced by children and adolescents were asked whether they could do reports, single reports on what happened in that institutions. So we have some reports on institution commissioned by the Catholic Church, so we know more about these case studies. How was the situation? How was the relation between the offender and the children and the young people? We have some reports commissioned by the national or state governments, and a report commissioned by this one prestigious progressive education school. The independent trustee to deal with sexual abuse issues organized in 2012 4 national hearings in Berlin on several topics. So that as well was important for trying to changing the public awareness on this issue, on sexual abuse. One hearing was on resources of the medical and health system. Another one, again, on the topic, and that is interesting, I think, in this auditorium, professionalization of social workers, teachers, therapists. Another one on do we need in Germany a kind of enlightenment, what happened in several years, like the Irish government did, or the Netherlands did, or John Jay in the US. And then a 4th hearing about legislation questions, for instance, compensation of victims from the government or from the institutions. So these 4 hearings were extremely interesting, went to the public, and make more or less some pressure to change political strategies, legislation strategies, and so on. But it's an ongoing process, and we will see how it works. So I'd like to come to that what we call the new Bundeskinderschutzgesetz. I know it is a really typical German term, a new child protection law. And this is quite interesting, I think. We have it since 2012. And this Bundeskinderschutzgesetz takes out new roles of social services. First of all, it has to the social service system is responsible to promoting the capacities of parents So offer them special programs to take care for children, to avoid abuse, to diagnose children's attitudes, and so on. Then the networking of professionals on a community level are important, together with school and social services, early prevention strategies, for instance, with home visits. And what is then the case, especially with sexual abuse, is before reporting a maltreatment case, professionals have to contact a special qualified expert. This is the so-called paragraph 8A expert, and then a teacher or a social worker has to clarify with this expert a case of for instance, of sexual abuse or child maltreatment. But we have the problem, we don't know, the qualification of this expert is not homogeneous, and it's not evaluated how it works. So that is a real challenge for the situation. Another issue in this national new law in Germany, there are two, I think, interesting implemented rights for children and adolescents. In case of neglect or abuse, in case of sexual abuse, now every child has the right and should have access to supervision and professional mentoring independent from parents. So it's not necessary to inform the parents or to ask the parents. So the child has the right independent from parents. I think this is an important step. And thank you, Zvi. And every single institution must guarantee access to an ombudsman, to an independent institutional reporting system. So that as well is important from the point of children's rights. So, and I think this is one aspect since 2010 which seems to be a better way for children and young people. So I'd like to take my 5 minutes to focusing on prevention, because what I said before was that we as researchers in the field of education, and I'm from the field of education, we are encouraged to research the effects, the circumstances of prevention concepts. And what we can see on the conceptual level of prevention concepts, many prevention programs on sexual abuse approaches are directed towards children. And I think, and David mentioned it before, this is too narrow. This is a problem to focus only towards children. Prevention projects has to focus not only on children, it is also relevant to focus on adults as well, and that is parents, childcare staff, and teachers. So I'd like to come to, I skipped this out, and I'd like briefly to come to a project. We did some research on it. It is a prevention program, and that is interesting for children on a primary grade. The title is My Body Belongs to Me. It is a theater-oriented project, and we did we have a small sample in one city in Bielefeld. It's in the northwestern part of Bielefeld in Germany. And what is interesting here is that this theater project, went since more than 15 years in that town, and in every primary school. So every child in the 3rd or the 4th grade of this in Bielefeld take part in this prevention program. And this program is in a network of schools, of social services, of mentoring, and also the police is involved. And these are the topics of this project. The actors go to the school 3 times, And they deal with this topic, saying yes and no, trusting strangers and people you know, good and bad secrets, who can I talk to about what, knowledge about sexuality, knowledge about abuse. This saying yes and no and have good and bad feelings, I think it was really important what David mentioned this morning. Is this a good topic for children at this age? Because they have ambivalent feelings, and how can we make them capable to realize the ambivalence of the feelings? So what we did when we tried to evaluate it, we try to evaluate the effect of this preventive program on third grade children, that are children from 8 to 9 years old, with a pre-post questionnaire and for several reasons, a really small control group and focus group discussions. But as well, we gain interviews, qualitative interviews with parents, and we had a questionnaire, and interviews with teachers and the experts on sexual abuse. So here you can see the sample of children, all in all 430 children from 8 to 9 years. As I said, it's a relatively small sample who participated in this pre-post study and a small control group. But it was in Germany, we need an active parental consent. That is first the case. And we have not that experiences with asking children at that age group and talking to them on sexual abuse, on these several issues within a questionnaire. If you're interested in, I'm here during the whole conference, and I can talk a little bit more about how we did it. This is, we have children with no migration background and with migration background compared to what the statistic data in general shows. And I'd like to show you two findings. As you can see here, the majority of the children likes this prevention program, but interesting is who answered to the question the children had when they joined the program. And here you can see the actors are the most important persons who answered the question the children have, then the mother, and then the teacher. So I like to close my presentation today with asking what we observed as well in the interviews with the teachers and the parents. It seems to be problematic for teachers as well as for parents to talk to children on, first of all, sexuality, and do we have a sexual pedagogic strategy, curriculum in the kindergartens and at schools, and then to talk about sexual abuse, finding words to talk with young children, and that is what children in our sample also mentioned, that they have the feeling that you can, I skipped it out, that they have the feeling that parents and teachers do not want to talk about. So I come to my conclusion. Experiences in Germany, what we can see is the public discourse and the media in this time are quite important to, I don't want to say break a taboo, but to work on a taboo. It was extremely important to hear the voice of the victims, and therefore the media played an important role. What we can see, some political strategies that seems to be interesting, how sustainable the strategies will be, for instance, with respect to the resources of research. And what we focus mainly on new strategies in welfare institutions, but we do not focus on the responsibility of schools. And it makes me curious how your situation is, or the situation in other countries. How can we encourage schools to deal with this and to implement prevention programs? Thank you very much for your attention.